Today we're going to take a look at Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. One letter in particular, letter 90, is actually all about philosophy and what it can do for us in the world. We have to keep in mind that Seneca is a very wordy guy, so I actually cut out a few bits in this just to make it more to the point. But if you listen in, you'll find out that philosophy is something that can really help you in this world, and how it's something that, although we think is simply navel-gazing, is actually something that is supposed to be used in our everyday life. Let's get into it. Who can doubt, my dear Lucilius, that life is the gift of the immortal gods, but that living well is the gift of philosophy? A corollary of this would be the certain conclusion that our debt to philosophy is greater than the debt we owe to the gods, by just so much as a good life is more of a blessing than simply life, had it not been for the fact that philosophy itself was something bestowed by the gods. They have given no one the present of knowledge of philosophy, but everyone the means of acquiring it. For if they had made philosophy a blessing given to all and sundry, if we were born in a state of moral enlightenment, wisdom would have been deprived of the best thing about her, that she isn't one that things which fortune either gives us or doesn't. As things are, there is about wisdom a nobility and magnificence in the fact that she doesn't just fall to a person's lot, that each man owes her to his own efforts, that one doesn't go to anyone other than oneself to find her. What would you have worth looking up to in philosophy if she were handed out free? Philosophy has the single task of discovering the truth about the divine and human worlds. The religious conscience, the sense of duty, justice, and all the rest of the close-knit, interdependent company of virtues never leave her side. Philosophy has taught man to worship what is divine, to love what is human, telling us what with the gods belongs authority, and among human beings, fellowship. That fellowship lasted for a long time intact, before men's greed broke society up, and impoverished even those she had brought most riches, for people ceased to possess everything as soon as they want everything for themselves. The first men on this earth, however, and their immediate descendants, followed nature unspoiled. They took a single person as their leader and their law, freely submitting to the decisions of an individual of superior merit. It is nature's way to subordinate the worse to the better. With dumb animals, indeed, the ones who dominate the group are either the biggest or the fiercest. The bull who leads the herd is not the weakling, but the one whose bulk and brawn has brought it victory over the other males. In a herd of elephants, the tallest is the leader. Among human beings, the highest merit means the highest position. So they used to choose a ruler for his character. Hence, people were supremely fortunate when among them a man would never be more powerful than others unless he was a better man than they were. For there is nothing dangerous in a man's having as much power as he likes, if he takes the view that he has power to do only what his duty to do. In that age, then, which people commonly refer to as the Golden Age, government, so Posidonius maintains, was the hands of the wise. They kept the peace, protected the weaker from the stronger, urged and dissuaded, pointed out what was advantageous and what was not. Their ability to look ahead ensured that their people never went short of anything, whilst their bravery averted dangers, and their devotedness brought well-being and prosperity to their subjects. To govern was to serve, not to rule. No one used to try out the extent of his power over those to whom he owed that power in the first place, and no one had either reason or inclination to perpetrate injustice, since people governed well were equally well obeyed, and a king could issue no greater threat to disobedient subjects than that of his own abdiction. But with the gradual inflation of vices and the resultant transformation of kingships into tyrannies, the need arose for laws which were themselves, to begin with, drafted by the wise. Solon, who established Athens as a democratic state, was one of the 7 men of antiquity celebrated for their wisdom. The same age had produced Lycurgus, an 8th name which had been added to that revered number. The laws of Epicurus and Chardonus are still admired. And it was not in public life or in the chambers of laws that these 2 men learnt the constitutional principles which they were established in Sicily, and throughout the Greek areas of Italy, but in the secret retreat, now hallowed and famous, of Pythagoras. Thus far I agree with Posidonius, but that philosophy discovered the techniques employed in everyday life, that I refuse to admit. I will not claim for philosophy a fame that belongs to technology. It was philosophy, says Posidonius, that taught men how to raise buildings at a time when they were widely dispersed, and their shelter consisted of huts burrowed out of cliffs or hollowed tree trunks. I, for my part, cannot believe that philosophy was responsible for the invention of these modern feats of engineering that rise up story after story, for the cities of today crowd in one against the next any more than our fish tanks. Those enclosures designed to save men's gluttony from having to run the risk of storms and to ensure extravagance safe harbors of her own. However widely the high seas may be raging, in which to fatten separately the different kinds of fish. Are you really going to tell me that philosophy taught the world to use keys and bolts on doors, which was surely nothing but a signal for greed? Was it philosophy that reared the towering buildings we know today, and all the danger they mean to the people living in them? It was not enough, presumably, for man to avail himself of whatever cover came to hand, to have found a shelter of some kind or other in nature without trouble and without the use of skills. Believe me, that age before there ever existed architects or builders was a happy age. The squaring off of timbers, the accurate cutting of beams with a saw that travels along a marked outline, all these things came in with extravagance. The first of men with wedges split their wood. Yes, for they were not preparing a roof for a future banqueting hall, and pines or firs were not continually being drawn through streets trembling at their passage on a long convoy of vehicles to support paneled ceilings heavy with gold. Their huts were held up by a forked pole stood at either end, and with close-packed branches and a slopping pile of leaves, a runoff was arranged for even heavy rains. This was the kind of roof under which they lived, and yet their lives were free of care. For men in a state of freedom had thatch for their shelter, while slavery dwells beneath marble and gold. Another matter in which I disagree with Posidonius is his belief that it was by wise men that tools were originally invented. On that sort of basis, there is nothing to stop him from saying it was by philosophers that discovered next were ways of snaring game, of catching birds with line, of setting dogs all around deep woods. It was human ingenuity, not wisdom, which discovered all that. I disagree with him, again, where he maintains that it was wise men who discovered iron and copper mining, when the earth had been scorched by a forest fire and had melted to produce a flow from surface veins of ore. The person who discovered that sort of thing is the kind of person who makes it his business to be interested in just that sort of thing. Nor, for that matter, do I find it as nice a question as Posidonius does, whether the hammer started to come into general use before the tongues or the other way around. They were both invented by some individual of an alert, perceptive turn of mind, but not one with the qualities of greatness or of inspiration. And the same applies to anything else the question of which involves a bent back and an unearthed gaze. The wise man then followed a simple way of life, which is hardly surprising when you consider how even in this modern age he seeks to be as little encumbered as he possibly can. How, I ask you, can you consistently admire both Daedalus and Diogenes? Tell me which of these two you would say was a wise man, the one who hit on the saw, or the one who, on seeing a boy drinking water from the hollow of his hand, immediately took the cup out of his knapsack and smashed it, telling himself off for his stupidity in having superfluous luggage about him all the time, and curled himself up in a jar and went to sleep. And today, just tell me which of the following you consider the wiser man. The one who discovers a means of spraying saffron perfumes on a tremendous height from hidden pipes, who fills or empties chambers in one sudden rush of water, who constructs a set of an interchangeable ceilings for a dining room in such a way as to produce a constant succession of different patterns with a change of ceiling at each course? Or the one who proves to others and to himself that nature makes no demand on us that is difficult or hard to meet, that we can live without the marble worker and the engineer, that we can clothe ourselves without important silks, that we can have the things we need for our ordinary purposes, if we can only be content with what the earth has made available on its surface. If they only cared to listen to this man, the human race would realize that cooks are as unnecessary to them as are soldiers. That race of men whom taking care of the body was a straightforward enough matter were, if not philosophers, something very like it. The things that are essential are acquired with little bother. It is the luxuries that call for toil and effort. Follow nature and you will feel no need of craftsmen. It was nature's desire that we should not be kept occupied thus. She equipped us for everything she required us to contend with. But that naked body can't stand cold. So what? Are the skins of wild beasts and other creatures not capable of giving us more than adequate protection against the cold? It is not a fact that many people make a covering of their bodies out of bark, that feathers are sewn together to serve as clothing, that even today the majority of the Scythians wear the pelts of fox and mice, which are soft to the touch and impervious to wind. When nature granted all the other animals a simple passage through life, she was not so unfair to man as to make it impossible for him alone, to live without all these skills. Nature demanded nothing hard from us, and nothing needs painful contriving to enable life to be kept going. We were born into a world in which things were ready to our hands. It is we who have made everything difficult to come by through our own disdain for what is easily to come by. Shelter and apparel and the means of warming body and food, all the things which nowadays entail tremendous trouble, were there for the taking, free to all, obtainable at trifling effort. With everything, the limit corresponded to the need. It is we, and no one else, who had made those same things costly, spectacular, and optional by means of a large number of full-scale techniques. Nature suffices for all she asks of us. Luxury has turned her back on nature, daily urging herself on the growing through all the centuries, pressing men's intelligence into the development of the vices. First, she began to hanker after things that were inessential, and then after things were injurious, and finally she handed the mind over to the body and commanded it to be out and out slave of the body's whim and pleasure. All those trades that give rise to noise or hectic activity in the city are in business for the body, which was once in the position of the slave, having everything issued to it, and is now the master, having everything procured for it. This is the starting point for textile and engineering workshops, for the perfumes used by chefs, the sensual movements of our dancing teachers, even sensual and unmanly songs. And why? Because the bounds of nature, which set a limit to man's wants by relieving them only where there is necessity for such relief, have been lost sight of. To want simply what is enough nowadays suggests to people primitiveness and squalor. It is incredible, Lucilius, how easily even great men can be carried away from the truth by the sheer pleasure of holding forth on a subject. Look at Posidonius, in my opinion, one of those who have contributed most to philosophy. He declares that philosophers invented the art of the weaver too, forgetting that philosophers had disappeared by the time his comparatively advanced type of weaving in which had been involved. He might have thought differently if he had only had the opportunity of seeing the looms of the present day. the end product of which is clothing which is not going to conceal a thing, clothing which is not help to modesty, let alone the body. Now all these things were indeed discovered by the exercise of reason, but not by reason in its perfect form. They were invented by ordinary men, not by philosophers. Just as, let me add, were the vessels we cross rivers and seas in, with sails designed to catch the drive of the winds, and rudders at the stern to alter the vessel's course in this or that direction, the idea being taken from the fish, who steers with his tail, one slight movement of the either side being enough to alter the direction of the darting course. All these things, says Posidonius, were invented by our philosopher. They were, however, rather too unimportant for him to handle personally, and so he passed them over to the minions among his assistants. No, the fact is, this sort of thing was not thought up by anyone other than the people who make them their concern today. You want to know, do you, what philosophy has unearthed, what philosophy has achieved? It is not the gracefulness of dance movements, nor the variety of sounds produced by horn or flute, as they take in breath and transform it in its passage through or out the instrument into notes. She does not set about constructing arms or walls or anything of those in war. On the contrary, her voice is for peace, calling all mankind to live in harmony. And she is not, I insist, the manufacturer of equipment for everyday essential purposes. Why must you make her responsible for such insignificant things? In her you see the mistress of the art of life itself. She has indeed authority over other arts, inasmuch as all activities that provide life, which is apparatus, must also be the servants of that of which life itself is the servant. Philosophy, however, takes her aim the state of happiness. That is the direction in which she opens roots and guides us. She shows us what are real and what are only apparent evils. She strips men's minds of empty thinking, bestows a greatness that is solid, and administers a check of greatness where it is puffed up, all an empty show. She sees what we are left in no doubt about a difference between what is great and what is bloated, and she imparts a knowledge of the whole of nature, as well as of herself. She explains that the gods are and what they are like. Suppose, for example, a philosopher happens to be a very fast runner. In a race, he will come first by virtue of his ability as a runner, not by virtue of his being a philosopher. I should like to show Pausanias some glass blower molding glass by means of his breath into a whole variety of shapes that could hardly be fashioned by the most careful hand. Discoveries that have occurred in the period since the disappearance of the wise man. These techniques may indeed have been discovered by a philosopher, but not in this capacity as a philosopher. For there are plenty of things which he does which one seems being done just as well, if not with greater skill and dexterity, by persons totally lacking in wisdom. What has the philosopher investigated? What has the philosopher brought to light? In the first place, truth and nature, having, unlike the rest of the animal world, followed nature with more than just a pair of eyes, things slow to grasp divinity. And secondly, a rule of life, in which he has brought life into line with things universal. And he has taught us not just to recognize, but to obey the gods, and accept all that happens exactly as if it were an order from above. She has told us not to listen to false opinions, and has weighed and valued everything against standards which are true. He has condemned pleasures, and an inseparable element of which is subsequent regret, has commended the good things which will always satisfy, and for all to see has made the man who has no need of luck the luckiest man of all, and the man who is master of himself the master of all. The philosophy I speak of is not the one which takes the citizens out of public life and the gods out of the world we live in, and hands morality over to pleasure, but the philosophy which thinks nothing good unless it is honorable, which is incapable of being enticed astray by the rewards of men of fortune, and the very pricelessness of which lies in the fact that it cannot be bought at any price. I do not believe that this philosophy was in existence in that primitive era in which technical skills were still unknown and useful knowledge was acquired through any actual experience, or that it dates from an age that was happy, an age in which the bounties of nature were freely available for the use of all without discrimination, before avarice and luxury split human beings up and got them to abandon partnership for blunder. The men of that era were not philosophers, even if they acted as philosophers are supposed to act. No other state of man could cause anyone greater admiration. If God were to allow a man to fashion the things of this earth and allot its people the social customs, that man would not be satisfied with any other system than the one which tradition says existed in those people's time. What race of men could be luckier? Share and share alike they enjoyed nature. She saw to each and every man's requirements for survival like a parent. What it all amounted to was undisturbed possession of resources owned by the community. I can surely call that race of man one unparalleled riches, it being impossible to find a single pauper in it. The earth herself, untilled, was more productive, her yields being more than ample for the needs of peoples who did not raid each other. With any of nature's products, men found as much pleasure in showing others what they had discovered as they did in discovering it. No one could undo or be undone by any other. All was equally divided among people living in complete harmony. The stronger had not yet started laying hands on the weaker. The avaricious person had not yet started hiding things away to be hoarded for his own private use, so shutting the next man off from actual necessities of life. Each cared as much about the other as about himself. Weapons were unused, hands still unstained with human blood that directed their hostility exclusively against wild beasts. Protected from the sun in some thick wood, living in some very ordinary shelter under a covering of leaves preserving them from the rigorous of winter or the rain. Those people passed tranquil nights with never a sigh. We in our crimson luxury toss and turn with worry, stabbed by needling cares. What soft sleep the hard earth gave those people. They had no carved or paneled ceilings hanging over them. They lay out in the open with the stars slipping past above them and the firmament silent, conveying onward that might work of creation as if it was a headlong bellow, the horizon in the magnificent pageant of the night sky. They had clear views by day as well as night of this loveliest of mansions, enjoying the pleasure of watching constellations falling away from the zenith and others rising again from out the sight beneath the horizon. Surely it was a joy to roam the earth with marvels scattered so widely around one. You now, by contrast, go pale at every noise your houses make. Those people had no mansions on the scale of towns. Fresh air and the untrammeled breezes of the open spaces, the unoppressive shade of the tree or rock, springs of crystal clarity, streams which chose their own course, streams unsullied by work of man, by pipes or any other inference of their natural channels, meadows who owed nothing of men's art. That was the environment around their dwelling places in the countryside. Dwelling places given as simple countrymen's finish. This was a home in conformity with nature, a home in which one enjoyed living and which occasioned neither fear or is not fears for it, whereas nowadays our own homes count for a large part of our feeling of insecurity. But however wonderful and guileless the life they led, they were not wise men. This is a title that has come to be reserved for the highest of all achievements. All the same, I should be the last to deny that they were men of exalted spirit, only one step removed, so to speak, from the gods. There can be no doubt that before this earth was worn out, it produced a better type of offspring. But though they all possessed a character more robust than that of today, and one with a greater aptitude for hard work, it is equally true that their personalities fell short of genuine perfection. For nature does not give a man virtue. The process of becoming a good man is an art. Certainly, they did not go in search of gold or silver or the various crystalline stones to be found in the nethermost dregs of the earth. They were still merciful even to dumb animals. Man was far and away from killing man, not out of fear or provocation, but simply for entertainments. They had yet to wear embroidered clothing, and had yet to have gold woven into robes, or even mine it. But the fact remains that their innocence was due to ignorance and nothing else. And there is a world of difference between, on the one hand, choosing not to do what is wrong, and on the other, not knowing how to do it in the first place. They lacked the cardinal virtues of justice, moral insight, self-control, and courage. There were corresponding qualities, in each case not unlike these, that had a place in their primitive lives. But virtue only comes to a character which has been thoroughly schooled and trained and brought to a pitch of perfection by unremitting practice. We are born for it, but not with it. And even in the best of people, until you cultivate it, there is only the material for virtue, not virtue itself.